We want you to have an amazing small group where you and the students get to know each other and have this rich, fruitful time. And I think a great small group comes down to 3 stories: your story, their story, and God's story. This is what makes up for great relational evangelism. When you share your story, when you draw out their story, and when you connect the threads to God's story. So when you prepare, when it comes down to sharing your story, that's what I want to talk about for a few minutes, is this one idea of sharing your story. First of all, make sure you've got a story. Too often, we'll open up the scriptures and we'll just begin explaining it, or we'll begin saying, here's what you should do with it. Or too often, we'll read a lesson and begin asking the discussion questions. Whoa! Before you do any of those things, make sure you receive the scripture, receive the lesson, receive the word that God has for you. So I think of 1 John. He says, that which was from the beginning, that's which we've heard, which we've seen with our eyes, which we looked upon, which we've touched with our hands concerning the word of life, we testify and proclaim to you. Right? I'm not telling you about something that I didn't first see and hear and touch and enjoy. That's what I want to share with you. You know, when I was maybe 8 or 9 years old, I had a friend named Drake, and Drake had spent some time overseas. He was a missionary kid, and he had learned the song. Maybe it was in Swahili, I'm not sure. And he came back, their family was on furlough, and he taught me the song. And I thought it was really great to sing this song in another language. And so Sunday came around, we had kind of our children and youth all in the same area, maybe 20 or 30 students. And Drake stands up in front of them and he says, I have a song I want to sing to you guys. And I ran up to the front and I was like, I know this song. I'm going to sing it with him. I get to be a performer in front of a room full of people. And then he starts singing a song that is not the song that he taught me. And I realized I didn't know the words. And I froze up. It was a terrifying moment. I had not received into my vocabulary or my brain. I had not received this song. I had nothing to give. And it was the worst feeling in the world. When you want to stand and teach somebody about the goodness of God, or when you want to apply a particular message, you need to let it work itself out in you first. I think of our theme, My Life Matters. What does it look like to receive that for yourself? Ask some questions of the text, right? Say, what is this truth? How does it work? So if you look at the verse, Psalm 139, verse 13, for you formed my inward parts, you knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Just deal with the text and deal with the Lord for a few minutes on your own. Ask questions like, how does this play out in my life? Is it true? Okay, is it true throughout Scripture that my life matters? Oh, I see it in Genesis, right? God says, let us make man in our own image. I see it in Psalm 139. I see it in Jesus. Oh my goodness, that God emptied himself of the glory of heaven to come and to redeem humanity. My life matters because Jesus died for me, because God created me. I fast forward all the way through to the end times where I see every nation, every tongue, every people group gathered around the throne, redeemed by Jesus into God's family. Whoa, it matters. I see it in Scripture. I see it in Jesus. What about in my own life? Do I see it playing out? Is it revealed in my own life? Or maybe it's not. Maybe there's some barriers. Maybe I've been fighting the Lord. You need to deal with this. Whatever the theme is, whatever the truth is, receive it for yourself. And then reveal God as the rescuer, as the redeemer, as the hero in your story. So this is where a lot of people get tripped up. They say, I'm not sure I want to tell my story. It's not very exciting. Or I'm not sure I want to tell my story. When I really got honest with the Lord, I realized that I had not arrived. I realized that I don't totally live like my life matters to God. I spend my time trying to prove myself. I spend my time just wrecked when people don't acknowledge me, and I think maybe I haven't lived like I fully believe that God treasures me and God says my life matters. I've been trying to get my value from something else, like my performance or a paycheck or something like that, you know? And so we kind of shrivel up and we think, I'm not sure I can share that story. But I want to show you Psalm 78. And there's a lot of historical psalms like this, but in Psalm 78, they spend dozens and dozens of verses singing about how rotten they have been and how good God has been. Here are some of those verses that talks about how in verse 56, yet they tested and rebelled against the Most High God and did not keep his testimony, but turned away and acted treacherously like their fathers. They twisted like a deceitful bow. Why would you ever uncover your own doubts, uncover your own brokenness, the area where you are wrestling? Why would you ever do that? Because you're not the hero of your story. God is the hero of your story. So if you are dealing with brokenness, God is the healer. If you are dealing with doubt, God is faithful and merciful. If you have dealt with anger, God has been patient and long-suffering with you. God is the hero of your story. So I think about the entire Old Testament saga of this family, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And eventually, when God sends a rescuer, Moses is the rescuer, and they come out of Egypt. How long does it take them to get to the promised land? It takes them 40 years. It takes them 40 years, but it's only an 11-day journey. If it was as simple as saying from point A to point B, that journey should have only taken 11 days. But it took them 40 years because the land may have been there. The land may have been the promise that God had given them, but they were not a people that were ready for that land yet. There's something mysterious going on, and that is the process of walking with the living God is the story that we're unfolding. We want to say, and then I arrived in the promised land. We want to share the end of the story, but there are chapters and chapters and chapters revealing the process. A 40-year journey should have taken 11 days. 40 years for an 11-day journey. So what is my point? My point is that God is the point. Jesus as rescuer, intervening in your life, that is the point of your story. So, ask yourself the question, what is saving me now? What is sustaining me right now? What am I clinging to? What has God given me without which I would not be surviving? Get rid of this idea that you wrap your life up in a nice box, put a bow on it, and you give it to the students and say, there you go, victorious Christian living. Aren't you struggling with something that you struggled with 10 years ago? The Lord is gracious. Have you grown? Has your perspective expanded? Yes. Share your story, and it's okay to reveal the way God is at work in your brokenness. It's a little bit like dealing with a pandemic, dealing with a disease. And where do we find the cure? Well, we find the cure, strangely enough, in people who were sick, right? Their body builds up antibodies, and those antibodies give us the direct clue to the healing and the salvation. So you are filled with antibodies, like in your brokenness, in your scar tissue are also the evidences of the Redeemer. And so you really can't lift up a true picture of Jesus as rescuer unless you are willing to let people in, uncover some of those tender, wounded areas, maybe where you're still inviting him to save you. So this is uncomfortable, and some people will say, don't do this. particularly in a pastoral role, people will say, don't do this. Don't share your weakness. Don't share your faults. And there is certainly value in shaping the details to match the audience, right? You don't lay out every gory detail for every audience, right? You shape the details depending on the audience, but you cannot give an accurate picture of your great Redeemer without revealing your need and your brokenness. So it's really these two things, these two big things. First, receive the truth for yourself. And second, reveal how God is at work in your brokenness and how he's bringing about victory and how he is walking with you on that 11-day journey that's taking you 40 years. Okay. And the third one is just put in some reps. Like, do the work to list out your first words, your last words. Do the work to gather the details to make sure you got your thoughts put together. You've said things in front of a mirror. If you're not practiced at public speaking, or if you're not sure you can constrain this story to the 5-minute window or the 2-minute window, right? We will benefit from putting in some reps. Now, I can go into a lot more details about how to kind of lay out those reps, how to sort of put that together. I'll link another video in the description here. It's one I made several years ago. It's got a worksheet if you want to kind of explore a little bit more of how to do this. But this is what it means to share your story. Just be real. Be real with students about the way that God is the hero of your story. And if you're trying to connect it to a specific passage or a specific theme, don't waste the opportunity. Don't jump into teaching them. Like, pause and see and remember the ways that the Lord has been at work. What you will find is not only will your teaching have power and impact because it will be real. Like, you're not just phoning it in, but you're sharing yourself with students, but you will worship the Lord. You will benefit from refreshing your memory of the way the Lord has been at work in your life. We are forgetful people. So when you do the legwork to really authentically share your story, it's good for them and it's good for you. In Jeremiah, Jeremiah is constantly going toe to toe with false prophets who are kind of whispering in the ears of the people, God won't punish you. Jerusalem will never fall. Don't listen to Jeremiah and his doom and his gloom, But Jeremiah, he gives this really strong warning to those prophets. And he says simply this: God is speaking about those prophets and saying, I didn't send those prophets, yet they ran. I didn't speak to them, yet they prophesied. But if they had stood in my counsel, then they would have proclaimed my words to my people, and they would have turned them from the evil ways and from the evil of their deeds. How long shall there be lies in the heart of the prophets who prophesy lies and who prophesy the deceit of their own heart? What God is saying is, when my word is in you, when my story is in you, when it's working its way in you, it's like a fire. It comes out of you with boldness, and it reaches out to your audience with salvation. Not because you save people, but because the Spirit of God saves people. And it brings me one final thing. It brings me back to this idea of Psalm 1. Do you remember the word picture in Psalm 1? Blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, stand in the seat of sinners, or sit in the seat with scoffers, but his delight's in the law of the Lord. He meditates on it day and night. He's like a tree planted by streams of living water. So soak up the goodness of the story of what God has done in your life, and then process it through your own life. And then what you produce is unique fruit. It's a testimony of God, but it's unique to you. Just like every plant that bears fruit is drawing in the same nutrients, but because their own story is unique, the thing they produce that benefits the whole community is unique because God has made them unique. So what is your story? Do you have technicolor giftings? Do you have a shocking testimony? Maybe not. Don't you think the Lord wants to reach some people with relatively ordinary lives? Don't you think the Lord wants to reach out to students who are introverts? Don't you think the Lord cares for more than just students who are likely to deal with drugs and alcohol? Like, those aren't the only stories that have saving power. So, wherever God has been at work in your life, share your story.